Hi, everyone. I'm Minnie Ingersoll, as I said, Code for America. We are a technology nonprofit focused on helping government. We believe that government can work for the people and by the people in the digital age. Uh, we have operations in 80 cities, and that's 25,000 volunteers who are helping to make their local government work better. Most of the volunteers are engineers, product, and designers. A lot of our products are based on Twilio, and so today I'm going to be talking about the improved communication that is possible between government and their constituents when you build beautiful services. So at Code for America, we believe that services can be simple, beautiful, and easy to use. We believe that outcomes can be better, better can cost less, and we can serve everyone with respect and dignity. And when we say services, we include government services. I'm going to talk just a little bit about Code for America and then jump into what we're actually building. So our first tenet is to show what's possible with a beautiful government service. We take what we're building and we extrapolate learnings to help others do it themselves. I'm going to come back to these concepts. And finally, we are building a movement of like-minded individuals who believe that government services can truly be simple, beautiful, and easy to use. Since 2009, Code for America has helped over 150 jurisdictions redesign critical services leveraging technology. So we're focused right now on vulnerable populations accessing critical services. We have 3 focus areas, and I'm going to share a couple examples, one from our work in the criminal justice system and one from healthy communities. I'm going to talk about how we help people get food assistance. And before I actually talk about our product in the criminal justice system, I'm going to give us all like a little reorientation on how criminal justice works in the United States or how it sometimes doesn't work. So there's 1.6 million people in prison in the United States. Prisons are operated at the federal or state level, and they hold people who've been convicted of felonies. A felony is a conviction that is for longer than a year sentence. There's 700,000 people in jail. Jails are locally operated, holding people who've been convicted of misdemeanor. A misdemeanor is a sentence of a year or less. And the next slide is crucial. It blows my mind. 70% of people in jail have not been convicted of a crime. So they are being held pre-trial. And, we live in a country that says you're innocent until proven guilty, but 70% of the people in jail have not been convicted. Pre-trial supervision is an alternative, and it is when you have been arrested. Instead of sitting in jail awaiting your trial date, you could be released on pre-trial supervision. That's one alternative. Just to review the process, you get arrested. You then see the judge for your arraignment, where the judge sets bail and also sets a trial date. And if that trial date is 3 weeks in the future, then you sit in jail if you can't pay bail or if bail is not set. So this is the important distinction of are you able to pay bail, and is bail set in an amount that you can pay? There are 3.7 million people on probation in the United States. This is different from pretrial supervision. This is after you have been sentenced as an alternative to spending time in prison or in jail. This is probation. This number, I think, is important, as is the pretrial supervision, because this is more than 50% of the population that's involved in the criminal justice system in the United States are people who are either on probation or on pretrial supervision. We're going to come back to communication. A failure to appear. This is a technical violation of your probation or your community supervision. So pretrial supervision, probation, both called community supervision. A technical violation might mean that you failed to show up for your court date, but it might just mean you failed to show up for some other appointment. So you had a drug test that you failed to show up for. And if you have a failure, a technical violation, you then get sent back to jail. One more example before I get into our product. This is an example. Her name is Danielle. She's has a clean record. She's pulled over and arrested, first-time offender for drunk driving. Bail is set at $25,000, and she decides to pay the $2,000 to the bail bondsman so that she's actually released. She's released with an 18-month probation. The terms of the probation are extremely onerous. So she has to go to 3 AA meetings a week. It's $100 a month, just the fee for probation. She's not allowed to move, which actually gets her in trouble because she decides she wants to move apartments within her same building. She had to go to alcoholics training, which was, I think it was $70 a week. So it turns out that her probation officer decides that she has violated the terms of her probation because she missed submitting some of the slips from her Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. She claims she's not an alcoholic, so her probation officer ends up, or the judge ends up sending her back to jail. She goes to jail then and sits in jail for 34 days before her hearing date. And it's horrible conditions that I won't go into. At the end of this process, Danielle then says, well, someone interviews her and she says, well, I learned a lot in this process. And the interviewer says, well, what did you learn? And she says that the system is broken. So it's not what the system was hoping for her to learn. So our team is focused on keeping people out of jail. One of our lead developers here, product managers, Manya here, says, we're keeping people out of jail for bullshit, which I like. This is about helping people avoid technical violations so that they can stay in compliance with the terms they have, and we're not crowding our jails with people who are in jail for the wrong reasons. Our product is ClientComm. It's the product I'm going to talk about. It's essentially a front end for Twilio, and it's an amazing product. And ClientComm is the product is focused on helping improve that communication so that we can reimagine how our criminal justice system works. As I said, it helps solve communication gaps, and as you might imagine, if you're on probation, your point of contact with the criminal justice system is your probation officer. Your probation officer and you might not have an easy way of communicating. It turns out that most people have cell phones, but if we're asking people, you need to submit the proof of your pay stub, you need to submit documentation, and we ask them to submit their documentation via a fax machine, we are not meeting users where they are. And so we need to find a way to help bridge this communication gap so that the person who is responsible for determining whether or not you go to jail has a way of communicating with you, and similarly, you have a way of communicating back to that person. So I have a few slides on our ClientComm tool. As I said, it's essentially a front end for Twilio, and it is a web-based tool. It works on any device. It works on your mobile device, and it allows for probation officers to text with the people that they are supervising, and it allows for probation officers to text without having to give out their personal cell phone, which is an extremely important feature for probation officers. They want to be able to communicate. They often have a large caseload. It also allows for call routing, so that you can give the department phone number, and you could give that to everyone that your department is responsible for supervising. Here's a demonstration of the MMS capabilities. We need a copy of your pay stub, and it makes it extremely easy for people to stay in compliance and upload their document. And extremely importantly, again, a lot of the work that we're doing is not rocket science work, but it's critical. So one of the best ways to help people be in compliance with their appointments is to text them a reminder. So this allows us to schedule reminders, or it allows probation officers to schedule reminders. So you've got an upcoming court appointment. Okay, this was is based on research. One of the things that people have found has a very high correlation with success is positive reinforcement and building a positive, just building a relationship between the person on supervision and their supervising officer. So we've built in prompts for positive reinforcement. I got a job interview. Congratulations. And I think this is my last screen, which is we also make it very easy to connect for the probation departments to connect their populations with community resources. So this as an example of employment, childcare providers. Oh, great. Next slide. So a little bit about what's actually how we came about building this product. Some of it is it's a really iterative process, and one of the great things is we now have hundreds of thousands of these messages that have been back and forth, and we can actually use some natural language processing to go through and read the messages, and then apply some natural language processing plus some machine learning to actually understand what is it that people are really talking about, and create topic maps of that. So it turns out that text messages are not the easiest to just parse, and you've got very local knowledge there as well. So it might be that Layla and I know what the red line is, but it requires you to train a model for your local jurisdiction so that so that you can pick up that means that people are communicating about transportation. So we created a topic map, and what we found was it wasn't exactly what we were expecting. But what people were talking about were terms of compliance. It turns out that it's so hard to stay in compliance that what people are messaging back and forth about is, how do I stay in compliance? I have a drug test scheduled on the same day as my court appointment. What would you like me to do? Or my boss said, I'm going to risk losing my job if I go to the drug test. Is there any chance you could help me reschedule it? So you learn that actually helping people, once you see the shape of the Venn diagram, there's actually possibilities to help reshape the Venn diagram into something else, something that it should be. So a lot of our product and the product development, what we're learning is let's test different things and create a product that runs our tests and then feeds that data back to what we're building. So one example might be sending a court date reminder. What time should we send that? How soon before the court appointment should we send that? Should it be a pretty short thing with just the date and time, or should we, include more information about the location and what you need to bring? We're able to test all these things. So that's one thing we're able to do, is we're able to build the product. But we're also able to take this, and this is kind of the more important point, and feed this back to our government partners. And when we feed it back to our government partners, we can say, this is where in the process things are most broken. Here's the opportunity for improvement. And hopefully then we can say, people are falling down in the process because we're scheduling drug tests at a time that's inconvenient for everyone, and we're not allowing them to reschedule. Maybe we should create rescheduling mechanisms. Okay, great. Texting works. It turns out some results are in the first iteration of ClientComm, we were able to increase client success increased by 32 percentage points. Client success here is people who successfully complete the terms of their probation. So they went through that period, they succeeded, they didn't go back to jail. That's huge. Okay, but then we scaled and texting continued to work. So in Baltimore, which is where the example I gave earlier from Danielle, who was a first-time offender, went back to jail, we deployed ClientComm and were able to reduce rearrests by 67%. But I think the point in bold is maybe the thing I want to really draw attention to, which is the number of people who were released into pretrial supervision doubled, which means Baltimore took the results of the work that we were doing and then changed their policy to release more people into pretrial supervision because they felt confident that they could communicate with these people and people would actually not end up missing court appointments and that sort of thing. So huge wins here. And I think I'm now going to give an example of one. Next example, I'm finishing the talk about ClientComm and going to give one more example. A lot of our work at Code for America is based on this improved communication. We use texting to achieve communication. I think it's actually what makes me really hopeful about the future of our democracy, is hopefully being able to build these two-way communication tools. So with Get CalFresh, it's one of our most mature products. We were able to show that communication leads not only to better outcomes, but also to better policies. Get CalFresh is our product to help people enroll in food assistance. So I'm a mother of 3, and the notion that someone says, I can't feed my family is very heartbreaking. But when someone says, I can't feed my family because the website doesn't work, it's something we can do something about, and that's how Get CalFresh was born. So this is a screenshot of Get CalFresh. It is a much better way to enroll in and then stay enrolled in SNAP, which is the Federal Food Assistance Program. It works on any device. It takes 8 minutes to complete. And this year, we're going to serve over 600,000 people with Get CalFresh. As I said, it's one of our more mature products. And it's currently over 80% of all state paid applications. So, so with Get CalFresh, we do a lot of the texting. All of the customer support is done via text. We do something similar to ClientComm where we do reminders of interviews if you have to have an interview, which you often do for enrollment. We also do things like enable people to get their EBT balance via text message, which is a much more convenient and dignified way of learning what your balance is. And the thing that I wanted to highlight here about the policy win was there's a new policy. It's called AB 1957, which stands for Assembly Bill 1957. So it's a California State Assembly bill that makes it possible for counties, it allows counties to use text messaging when doing SNAP enrollment. And this was something that Code for America participated in this process of policymaking. And it sounds straightforward, but in fact, when it was originally written, it had a lot of very onerous opt-in requirements that made it very difficult for someone to opt in, and then a lot of onerous requirements around the storage of all the text messaging that went back and forth. So it's a wonderful simplified bill now, and 70% of our users opt in to receive the SMS or email notifications for Get CalFresh. Okay, so those were my 2 examples, but sort of back to what I was talking about, sort of the framing of how we approach these problems more generally. We start by building a service that is based on user needs, and we get out in the field, we understand what's going on, but then we also do the operations around this. So this is like what I was saying with Get CalFresh, where we're actually running the customer support, which gives us the data to know where in the process people are where in the funnel It's dripping. It's a dripping funnel. And we can then feed that back to policymakers. And we think this is really one of the most crucial things that we're doing is we're not just building the service, but we're helping make policies be as iterative as possible. And the work that we do with government, we often talk about this as instrumentation. And the idea of instrumentation being you have feedback cycles. So a policy is not just something that is written by a policymaker once, thrown over the fence to the developers to implement, but it's something where there's a policy, it's the developers work on it, it's implemented, and in the field we have measuring sticks or whatever instrumentation, we have data from the SMS communication. We have data to then feed that back to the policymakers, and they've got the levers and the knobs to tweak things to make the policies better. And we think that, essentially it's doing things like taking agile development concepts, but applying it to policymaking. So finally, I just wanted to reiterate that these are two examples, but hopefully two examples that show that government services can be simple, beautiful, and easy to use. Outcomes can be better. Better can cost less, and we can serve everyone with respect and dignity. We believe that if we did, it would be the biggest source of societal good for a generation, and we'd like to invite you all to join the movement and build it with us. Thank you.